But when I could take somebody that's having those types of concerns and problems and put them in a position where they're going, man, this is so much nicer, so much easier. Those are big paydays for us.
Pop culture has become obsessed with entrepreneurship stories from Silicon Valley and big startup. But the backbone of our economy is made of small, local businesses. Every day, millions of small business owners deliver quality products and services, support the local economy, employ their neighbors, and follow their passion. We think their stories are worth telling. I'm Angela Jovine. Welcome to the Extraordinary Small Business Podcast. This episode is brought to you by ClickFunnels. Taxes. Business structures. These seemingly straightforward topics are actually anything but simple. Large corporations all across the world employ teams of people to develop the ideal business structures for legal protection and tax advantages. But what about small businesses? Enter Ross Brunson. Ross has devoted his entire career to assisting small business owners in these important matters. And as a business owner himself, Ross has seen firsthand how the digital age has transformed his industry.
Hi, my name is Ross Brunson, and I'm one of the owners of BookEase.
So tell us, what does BookEase do?
Well, we're a company that's been around for quite a while. We do three major things. One, we help people who are a lot of times just getting started in business, and they're looking to set up a business organization of some sort, like an LLC or a S corporation or a C corporation. And a lot of times they don't know what would be the best type of entity for them. And so we get together with them and we discuss their particular situation, and we help them come to a conclusion as to which entity would give them the most benefits for what it is that they're trying to do. So that's the first thing. And then we help them set those businesses up. We help them get the articles of organization or the articles of incorporation drawn up. We get them to the state where they need them registered in. We then get them processed. We then get EIN numbers for the companies. We draft up all the legal documents they need to have to support their company. And we put them all together in a nice 3-ring binder, and we provide that to their client. So that's kind of the first step. The second step is we have a team of accountants, probably close to 9 accountants that work in our company that do accounting for small business owners. And we probably have about 140 small business owners across the country that we help do their accounting. And because of the fact that we're not in the city with a lot of these people, we have a special way of being able to log into their accounts behind the scenes, gather their income information, their expense information. We enter that all into our QuickBooks file and then provide profit and loss statements for them each month. And the final thing that our company offers is we have a CPA that is a major part of our company. And so she's there available to help file personal tax returns and business tax returns. So it's kind of like a one-house, one-stop operation for setting up, doing the accounting for and filing the tax returns for small business owners.
That is an area that many small business owners not only avoid, but are intimidated by and confused by. How did you become involved in this? How did you decide that you wanted to go into accounting?
Well, that's a good question. When I got out of college, I had some accounting experience that I picked up there. And I was thinking about doing accounting, but what I really was interested also in doing is working in the construction trades. And so I had the opportunity to start a business, and it was an insurance restoration business. When people have a fire in their home or water damage in their home, they need people to come in and help restore those homes back so that they can live in them. And I ran across the opportunity to be able to start up my own business doing that. So I decided I would take advantage of that. And so we started this insurance restoration business. And for a while, I was doing the accounting for the company. But as small business owners, their time is more valuable working with clients, building client relationships, finding new customers, those type of things, than it is spent, sitting there behind the computer trying to handle all the accounting and tax preparation. So to give myself more time to be able to, go out and actually work my business, I ended up hiring a CPA to help me keep track of my accounting and the taxes at the end of the year. Well, things were going good. My business was really accelerating. We were making good money. And, the accountant would come by and grab my information. And then he would, I guess he would do the books. He never really gave me a profit and loss or balance sheet ever. And he would then prepare the tax returns. And I remember taxes were due on April 15th for my business at that time. On April 14th, he showed up at my door about 6 o'clock and said, well, I got your tax return here. Let me give it to you. And by the way, you owe $10,000 by tomorrow.
Oh,
$10,000,
by tomorrow.
By tomorrow, how am I supposed to do that? So after I scrambled and got loans and things to take care of that, then I said, well, let's have a meeting. Why don't you come over to my house and we'll sit down and we'll discuss ways that we can plan so that it won't happen in the future, make payments or whatever I got to do, or if there's some way you can help me reduce my taxes, please let me know. And so he said, sure. So he came over and sat at my kitchen table for about an hour, and my wife fed him cookies and milk, and we chatted, And after that period of time, he left, and he didn't tell me anything at the meeting what he was going to do. He didn't, afterwards summarize anything he was going to do. I just assumed that he must have figured out what he needed to know to help me out. Well, the next year... You
thought you were all clear. It was all set up. You trusted him.
Yeah. So I just trusted he was doing this and watching out for my backside. And then the next year, again, April 14th, he shows up and he says, here's your tax return. This year you got about closer to $20,000 in taxes that you owe. And so I'm just like, I can't do this, I can't keep doing this type of thing. I need to have more control. And so I started looking around for someone else that might be able to help me. And I ran across a guy who claimed to be a tax attorney. And one of the things I was looking not only for someone to help me do my taxes, but also help me reduce my taxes. And so this attorney was supposedly a tax attorney, and I went to his presentation, and he talked about a specific entity at the time, which he thought was a good entity. It was a business trust, and he promoted it. And in his presentation, he told about how you could reduce your taxes through the use of a business trust, specifically because of the entity that it was. It had these certain features granted to it. And so I said, great. And so I signed up, and he started helping me and teaching me a little bit. And then after I signed up, I realized, or I found out the hard way, that the IRS felt that these trusts were, tax avoidance schemes. And so they knocked on my door and wanted to audit me. And so I'm like, well, I don't know much about this. All I know is this tax attorney told me that this was, great, and he helped me do the tax return and whatnot. And so it turned out that it wasn't very good, and they collapsed the trust and made me back to be a sole proprietorship, and I had to pay additional taxes and things. But that gave me a clue in my mind. I realized there are more things than business trusts out there, and do these additional entities, corporation, a limited partnership, an LLC, would any of these type of entities also have tax benefits associated with them, inherent within them? And so I spent a lot of time and money. I spent over $10,000 buying materials on all the different types of corporations and LLCs and limited partnerships, everything that there was on the different entities out there. And I studied those very long and for a long period of time. And I realized that, there are certain things that you could do just by the entity type that you choose that will allow you to reduce your taxes.
Just choosing properly and having that knowledge.
That's correct. Yes. And so I started doing it in my own business, my insurance restoration business. I started using some of those things, and my taxes were going way down. And so I was doing my own tax returns at that time. And I had friends in the industry that were talking to me, and they'd say, well, how was tax season for you this year? Was it terrible? And I said, well, not too bad. I said, I only had to pay about this much in taxes. And they were making about the same amount of gross income as I was. And they're going like, well, we're paying 2 or 3 times that amount.
They're like, what voodoo have you learned? And can you teach us?
Exactly. They said, well, what are you doing? And would you be willing to do it for me? And so I said, well, okay. And so I kind of started taking over for some of my friends, doing their accounting on the side and helping them set up their structure correctly so that they could take advantage of these things. And as I was doing that, they then told their friends. And before I knew it, I was having quite a few people come to me. And so I kind of left the insurance restoration business and I started up my accounting business probably in about 1992 or so. So it's quite a while back. And since that time, I started out helping people, do their business structuring and setup, helping them do their accounting and helping them do their tax returns at the end of the year. And so that's how I kind of got started into it. It wasn't something I had planned originally. It wasn't something that was easy to discover. They say I had to spend years and money, a lot of money, to be able to find this information out because it's just nowhere out there. That's kind of how I got started into this business.
You experienced so many things that every small business owner experiences. You want to seek the advice of an expert, especially in something like taxes. And unfortunately, not all CPAs are created equal. And so you experienced a lot of those wolves in sheep's clothing, or people who just weren't as expert as they should have been in the world of insurance as you were doing this insurance restoration business. That's something that so many of us deal with. And it's always such a challenge to trust someone with something as sensitive as your financial information to say, yes, like not only am I going to give you all of this very sensitive information about me, myself, my family, my business, but I'm going to trust that you know everything that I don't know in order to make the best decisions for my future. And you started your business in the way that most of us do, which is you saw a need and it kind of grew organically from there, it sounds like.
Yeah, it just kind of took over and it's become my life's work, basically.
You mentioned that BookEase was founded in 1992, and before that, you were doing insurance restoration. So how long were you in insurance restoration before you switched?
I was in that for 5 years.
Okay, so out of college, or were you a newlywed?
Yeah, pretty much out of college. One of my first jobs was working for an insurance company as a claims adjuster, doing, if a person had a fire claim or a water damage, I would help them settle that claim. And I would write out the checks from the insurance companies. And I realized as I was writing out these checks to these contractors that they were getting paid a lot more than I was. Right. And so that's kind of made me interested in going into that field. I felt I had the expertise to be able to do it. And so all it took was, making the decision and making the right move and getting into that field. And so I did, and I was in it for 5 years. And then from there, I got into the accounting business.
And did you study accounting in college?
Yeah, I had some accounting there, and I've taken classes afterwards and things, that I wanted to do to upgrade and up my knowledge in the field. So, I felt real good. I like I said, I can keep a set of books very well, and so I did that for a lot of my clients for a long time.
We have that in common. I did a minor in accounting, so I experienced a lot of what you experienced, probably in that. Not a lot of accountants, not a lot, but accountants aren't always by definition entrepreneurial. The typical track of someone who studies accounting in college is an accounting firm or in-house at a corporation to do their accounting. But yet you very quickly started to nurture that entrepreneurial itch inside you. Did you always know that you wanted to work for yourself, or is it something that you sort of naturally discovered?
Yeah, that's a good question. all my grandfathers and grandmothers, if they were working, they all had employers that they worked for. And same thing with my father. He had an employer all his life. And so I was kind of in that rut also. I was working for, like I said, Farmers Insurance Company. And so I was working for them. But I like I say, as I was paying these contractors, I saw how much more money that they were making than what I was making. And I had a young family and they were starting to grow up, and I was struggling financially. And I just thought, working for somebody is not necessarily the best way, unless you were really intelligent and had, great number of degrees and you had some specialty that some company really wanted and would pay you a lot of money to do that. But for the most part, for the general public, you're working for someone else, you're not going to be making the type of money that business owner is going to make. You're going to be making less. And I just really felt that I would like to take that risk. And it was tough at first. In fact, my wife gave me a lot of pushback when I was telling her I was going to quit our job and start a business.
So you were married at that point when you decided to start a business?
I was, yeah. She wasn't happy at all.
Been there.
She was saying, why would you leave a job where you have a guaranteed paycheck, to go out there and do something where you don't know if you're going to even get paid at all? And I said, well, the potential is so much greater on that side, even though the risks are high, and it's scary. The potential is so much greater that I'm willing to take that risk.
And you probably used that same line that we have all used, which is, what's the worst thing that could happen? I could always go back, right?
Exactly. I
remember having that same conversation with my husband because I left my corporate job. We were about a year married when I said, if I don't do this now, before we have children, I think I will regret it. It was something that I just had to do. So I totally get that. So you incorporated, you began BookEase in 1992, and it was just you at first. And you were basically just getting your clients by word of mouth. And God knows in 1992, the world looked a lot different. There was no internet. The world of accounting, the world of taxes, it was all paper. Paint me a picture. What did it look like?
Well, yeah, you're right. There wasn't a lot there. I mean, when it came to the information on structuring on the types of entities, that information was extremely hard to come by. There were just no books written.
I honestly don't even know where you would look. Like, you can't Google it. Like, where would you even go?
That was the problem, and nobody talked about these things, and nobody really had a clue as to the internal workings of the company. The liability attorneys would say, you should be this, because we believe this has a stronger level of liability protection associated with it. The accountants you talk to, the CPAs, they say, well, you should be this because there's greater tax benefits. But the accountant had no idea anything about the liability, and the liability attorney had no idea about the accounting. And so their recommendations were just based around what they knew. And they would recommend that to the person out there, and that person has no clue whatsoever on either side. And so, they're just kind of left to the whim, like, well, what should I be? Well, you ought to be an LLC. Okay, well, why? And you're talking to a friend, why? I don't know.
Someone suggested it. Yeah, I heard it was good. That's basically what I did.
Another would say, you ought to be an S Corp. Well, why? Well, I don't know why.
I heard it's good for your taxes, period. Yeah, okay.
My CPA told me to be one, so you should be one.
And because you just want to move on to starting your business, you just do it. And like you said, because this information wasn't something you could just Google, that most people probably didn't even know what they didn't know. It wasn't even like a consideration.
Right. And so there wasn't anything easy to get a hold of. And the books that I had to get were expensive. Like I said, I spent well over $10,000 on books, specialty places to be able to try to get some of this information. And then, of course, there really wasn't much in the way of tax programs. TurboTax was just kind of starting to come on the scene at that time. And most of the team
Different world. No, a world without Intuit.
Yeah, what we were doing back then is all by hand, keeping track of your chart of accounts, and you'd have a piece of paper for each chart of account, and as you did the checks, you'd list them on, whichever account
Ledgers
went on,
Ledger meant a whole different thing back then. It meant a kind of paper.
Right. And, the accountants would do their work, outside under a shade tree, sometimes right on the porch, but they're always working on paper. So things were different that way as well. And it was a lot different back then.
And in terms of having clients, I would guess most of your clients were local at the time.
Yes.
Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, they had to be because of the fact that, they would be bringing me over their checkbooks and, things. There wasn't an internet to send them digitally to me,
or find them, or they find you. It was just not as conducive or cheap to do. You could possibly buy a national television commercial, but that's not the same thing as what we do today as small business owners to market on a larger scale. So at what point did your business grow to the point that you said, I need to start hiring people?
Some of your audience may know my son, Russell Brunson. I don't know. If you're in the internet marketing world, you probably have heard of him. But, I was working alone, and he got out of college, and he started into the internet marketing business. And we were on vacation one time, and we were doing a river running trip. We were in the bus traveling to where they're going to drop us off in the river and go down. And he was just telling me about this new thing he was getting into called internet marketing. The internet was just brand new at that time. And so, I'm saying, well, that's interesting. Tell me about it. He goes, yeah, we sell products over the internet, and works out well, and everything's great. And he says, but the best thing about it, Dad, was that you don't have to pay any taxes on the internet.
I've heard him tell this story.
I said, well, wait a second. What do you
You're
mean?
like, oh, no.
Oh, no, it's right. And so then I started saying, well, you may not have to pay sales tax in some situations, but I think you still have to pay income tax to your state and to your federal government. And he was like, he was just shocked, just shocked.
Right.
And so he said, well, will you come over and help me out? And so I said, okay. So I came over to his house, and he handed me his business checkbook. And it was in a mess. I mean, it was just a check stub, because he'd rip the checks out. There'd be a date and a name, but no amount. Or there'd be an amount and a date and no name. Sometimes nothing.
Any of us can relate. Uh-huh.
And so I had to go back and get copies of all of his checks and start entering in, so that I could catch up all of his accounting, and so that I can then help him file his tax returns. And so once we did that, and I got him going, and he saw the benefit of it as he grew as a entrepreneur, he would tell people about it. He'd say, my dad really helped me out. He got me squared around. He helped me choose the right type of structure to be in. He helped me do my accounting. He does my tax returns for me. And so people would start, finally I started getting some people that would contact me through this means of promotion. I remember one time he did this, and he was just driving to work, and he had this little thing he called Drive to Work podcast. And so while he was driving, he would just talk in his phone, this podcast, and then he would release it. And one day, his whole trip to work, he just talked about me and my business and what I did, and gave out my information. Well, immediately after that went live, I must have had 70 or 80 people contacting me, wanting me to help them structure their business and setting up. And so all of a sudden I had this huge clientele. So now I couldn't do it all alone anymore. I needed some help. And at that point in time, I had a friend of mine whose son had married a girl that had a degree in accounting, and she was looking for work. And they asked, would I be willing to have her come on board and work with me doing the accounting? And so I talked with her for a while, and she was a real sharp individual, very, meticulous, very organized and all. And I said, sure. So we started splitting things up, and I started doing more of the setting up the businesses, and she started doing a little more of the accounting side of things. And we worked well together, and then we both kind of shared the tax returns at the end of the year for our business owners. And so that was kind of our first movement into expanding. And then so as we were expanding, we were keep getting more and more work, and this poor girl was overwhelmed, and she started having children. She was working from home, because at that time we had the internet.
Around what year was that you first hired her?
Probably around 2000, something like that.
Oh, okay. Earlier than okay.
Maybe or 2005. I don't know, somewhere just kind of there at the beginning, but we had more access to more things. And
right. Okay.
Over the internet and different things. And so we worked together, and she, was just a housewife as well, and was doing that kind of on the side. And she then had a child, and then she had another child, and then she had another child. For long, she had 5 children, like, I can't do all this anymore. I have to spend time with my children. So at that point in time, I had a nephew who was in the master's program in accounting. He was just finishing up with his master's degree. So I said to him, would you be willing to help us do some accounting work? This girl's getting a little bit overwhelmed, and so we'll give you some of her work. And as we grow, we'll continue to give more and more. And so he said, sure, I'll be happy to do that. And he was kind of working again on his own, doing accounting for a company and then working with us. And so we continued to grow, and we continued to grow. And I kept giving him more and more business to the point where he finally said, I either got to quit my job or I got to quit you. I can't.
This is now 2 career paths. Yeah.
Right. It's just too much. And so I said, well, I would love to have you with me and part of the company. And so he said, okay. He says, tell you what, we have enough work here where we can start hiring some additional accountants. Would you be willing to allow me to be the supervisor over the accountants? I'll continue to do some, and I'll supervise. And I said, sure, that sounds like a good deal. And so we set him up as a supervisor, and he then started interviewing accountants, finding ones that were good, and hiring them on to help us. And again, they were working from home, and a lot of them had other accounting jobs. We were giving them as our clients that they were serving on our behalf. And so that was going good. And then all of a sudden, we were getting to the point where we were having so many tax returns because of all the accounting and things that it was difficult to keep up. And it just so happened at that point in time, my sister got her CPA degree. And so my sister came along and said, I just got out of school. I just have my CPA. I'm ready to start my own business. Can you help me out? And I said, you bet. We got so much tax return work that, and we just loaded her up to the point where now she can, she's had to hire 2 or 3 new CPAs in her office just to keep up with the tax work that we've got. So I've expanded from myself being a 1-man operation to a 2-man with my nephew helping with the accounting, and then a 3-man with my sister doing the tax returns. And so the 3 of us are kind of the principals of BookEase. And
how many of you are there in total?
Our CPA has probably 2 other CPAs plus an enrolled agent that she has. My supervisor over the accountants, my nephew, he's got about 9 accountants that work underneath him.
Wow.
And I have my production. What I do is I help them set up their business. And so there's a lot of paperwork that have to be drafted up. And so I have a drafting department. So I have one person who helps me draft up the documents specific to the particular individual I'm working with. And he then drafts them up, gives them back to me to review. And then I give them to another person, a lady, a housewife, who takes that information. She prints them all up for me nicely. She puts them in boxes to be mailed out. And she brings them back to me to mail. So that's everyone we've got so far in the operation.
I first stumbled across ClickFunnels probably 4 or 5 years ago. And at first I thought, cool software, but I don't think I need this for my company. But the founder, Ross Brunson, he is relentless when it comes to serving entrepreneurs. I eventually found his podcast, and I found the ClickFunnels online community, which was the gateway to all things ClickFunnels. Funnel Flicks, Funnel University, his books, Marketing Secrets, Expert Secrets, and now Traffic Secrets. And of course, Funnel Hacking Live, his amazing 1,000-person plus live event. I realized that I could really use this funnel methodology for my local business with some of my existing products and services. And so a few years ago, I started to try it out. I experimented with a number of different funnels, and to my surprise, money started flying in. A couple super important things about online sales. One, it's powerful because it's scalable. Your revenue potential goes way up, and it's really only limited by your audience size. And number two, it works for traditional brick and mortar businesses. I work with many traditional businesses, and I've been counseling them for years that every traditional business can benefit from additional revenue streams online. And now, more than ever, that has become not only obvious, but necessary. That's where ClickFunnels comes in. The team at ClickFunnels has built this amazing drag and drop software for creating sales funnels that's literally easy enough for anyone. If you have a business, if you have bricks and mortar, if you have an online store, if you have a service-based business, if you have a side hustle, if you are thinking about any of those things, then you should go try ClickFunnels. And right now, I have a ridiculous offer for you. If you go to extraordinarysmallbusiness.com/ClickFunnels and sign up for the One Funnel Away Challenge, you'll receive literally everything you need to start supercharging your business online. This introductory offer is valued at $3,126, but you get it for $100. That's extraordinarysmallbusiness.com/ClickFunnels to receive 30 days of training, coaching, a customized toolkit, a workbook, and actual interviews with people who have made over $1 million each on sales funnels through ClickFunnels. So head to extraordinarysmallbusiness.com/ClickFunnels and sign up today. That's extraordinarysmallbusiness.com/ClickFunnels. You were a solopreneur for quite a while, it sounds like. And it wasn't until early 2000s when this moment happened where it sort of exploded your growth. What made you choose for such a long time to take on as much work? What is the saying? Like, eat what you kill, basically. Do the work that you can handle and keep it just as a solopreneur. What was your rationale there?
Well, at the time, there was nobody that could do what I was doing.
So you were having trouble finding someone with your capabilities.
Right. Like I said, I spent years and years and thousands of dollars to gather this information structuring. There was nobody out there that even had it. In fact, my son Russell started holding some conferences, and I would go and speak, and I would talk to people about structuring. And there were people that would come up to me and says, I have a degree in finance, and I've never heard any of this stuff. I've got accounting degrees. I've never heard any of this stuff that you're explaining to me. I've even had attorneys come up to me